All right, so we have our house file. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in 3D here. There are lots of different kinds of renders that you can do. And you're going to be required to have a few different ones specifically, and you'll have some flexibility to make the other ones the way you want them to be. You're going to do some renders of the exterior of the house, some renders of the interior of the house. So kind of get a feel for what you want to make. You can make a render from pretty much any view. A render is a photorealistic view of the house. It takes into account shadows, lighting. It takes into account the materials you've created. It is the nicest looking way that you can look at your house. So you want to get angles and get things set up before you take the picture of the house. The rendering will look the way that your screen looks. So if I did a rendering right now, it would show the white background. It would show no ground, the floor sticking out of the bottom, that kind of stuff. So you kind of want to think of a render the way you would think of taking a picture with a camera. Get things framed the way you want them to look before you click the button to render, so that it looks the way you want it to look, and there's nothing sticking out weird, nothing looks off. So let's start with exterior renders, and then we'll get into how you do interior renders of your house and how you do things inside the house. So here we are at the 3D view. I'm going to do an exterior render of the back of the side of my house here. All of your rendering tools are under the View tab. And then you'll have, under the presentation section, this little teapot. The teapot is the symbol for rendering. It's a very old, it's an old icon that we've used for 20, 30 years because the very first 3D render ever done on a computer was of a teapot. So because of that, we use a teapot as the rendering symbol. You'll see that in most applications. If you have a symbol or an icon for rendering something, it'll be the teapot. I always get that question, why is there a teapot down there? And why does that have anything to do with rendering? Because the first thing that was rendered was a teapot. So click the button and it opens up our rendering window here. Lots of options in here. This is actually a lot more powerful than it looks at first glance. The first option at the top here is quality. Now, I can move my building around a little bit still while I have that rendering options up. So I'm going to get this set up exactly the way I want it to look. Again, the window, the way that it is laid out right now, is what I'm going to create. So I want to get kind of a nice zoomed in look here. I want to see the whole house kind of as if I was standing at the back here. So I'm going to angle it real nice. See the side and the back. Seeing some of the windows. Just like that. Quality settings are presets. And you can get in here and do custom. You can really go in and fine tune some of the really specific stuff about how it's going to render. And I encourage you to go in and play with that if you want to. I'm not going to spend the time today to really dig into what's in custom. We're going to look at these four basic levels. So we use draft. Draft is quick. Draft is done in a few seconds. A draft render looks terrible, but a draft render will show you how does your lighting look? How are your shadows? Is there enough lighting in the scene? Is there your layout properly done? Are your materials coming out the way you want them to be? So draft render is perfect for, is this going to be good when it's done? Because if you jump right into a high quality or a best quality render, it's going to take 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours sometimes, depending on the render. And if you do that only to find out in the end it's too dark, or my lighting's not enough, or this material was wrong, it's a completely wasted time. So it's best to always set everything up, do a draft render, make sure it's correct, and then do a high quality render. So we're going to look at that in a second. We'll leave it at draft. Resolution. Do you guys understand what resolution means? It can be how clear it is. So the resolution of a screen, you're familiar with words like 1080p and HD quality and 4K and that kind of stuff, right? You've heard of those things. Those are all relating to the resolution of a screen, and that is essentially how many pixels there are on the screen. And you guys don't understand what pixels are anymore because you can't see them. When I was little, we could actually see the pixels on screens. Pixels are little tiny dots of light that make up a screen. Every screen has them. You can almost see them on this screen, more so than you can on your computer screens. Little tiny dots of light. And those numbers, 1080p, 4K, are relating to how many of those dots of light there are on one screen. So 1080p has 1080 points of light vertically, and 1080p is actually a type of display specific layout. So like my screen on my laptop's 1080p. It's 1080 points of light vertically and 1920. So it's 1080 by 1920 is what 1080p means. So 1920 points of light horizontally. Because of the size of my screen, that's so many, I'll never see them. They're so tiny, right? Well, that's good. That's a clearer picture. So yeah, it doesn't relate to the picture clarity. The more you have, the clearer your picture is. Well, the bigger your screen is, the more likely you are to see those little dots if it's the same number. If you have a 1080p screen that's 80 inches versus my 1080p screen that's this small, they have the same number of pixels because that's what 1080p means. Does that make sense? So that's why we're starting to get into things like 4K screens. 4K is 4,000 pixels vertically now instead of 1080. So it's more pixels vertically, more pixels in that space than there was on a 1080p screen. Does that make sense? So if you're gonna have a big screen, you want it to be 4K because it can contain more pixels and it can show more stuff. That's all it is. So resolution over here, screen means the exact number of pixels that there are in the space that I'm showing on my screen. So again, my screen is 1080p, but this space that this is taking up is exactly, and it shows you here, 1257 by 603. And that's what it's going to be. Screen is usually good enough for whatever you're doing. It'll be exactly the resolution that you see right now on your screen, and 9 times out of 10, it's good enough. If you're doing a render for printing, and you want to print it bigger than your screen, then you want to look at printer resolutions. DPI stands for dots per inch. You also sometimes see PPI, points per inch, means the same thing. Okay? So DPI, PPI, 150 DPI is typically the baseline for something that is good enough to print and look good. Other options under here? 300 DPI is the resolution that you get when you print for magazines and high quality advertisements and publications. So really, really, really nice printing is typically 300 DPI. Our printer in the back is more than capable of doing 300 DPI. 600 DPI is well above what anybody typically would ever need on a daily basis. This is if you're printing on the scale of, 2 of these sets of desks put together. A huge, gigantic printing, something you're gonna hang in the window of, like a business or something. A gigantic printing, and you want it to be huge and beautiful. 600 DPI. The resolution is the number one thing that affects how long your rendering takes. Going from 150 DPI to 300 DPI, double the dots per inch, double the amount of time. If the render would have taken half an hour, now it takes an hour. From 300 to 600, double the amount of time again. If it was going to take half an hour on 150, now it takes 2 hours. Okay? It's easily the hardest part of the rendering is the resolution. So notice 150, we're looking at 1677 by 845. If I switch back to screen, it's even less than that. So screen, again, is typically going to be your best balance of it looks good, but it doesn't take forever. So we almost always leave it on screen unless you have a specific reason to change it. Does that make sense? Okay. It also affects the image size. 2.9 megabytes is a good size. If I went up to my 600 DPI, we're talking about 86 megabytes. That's pretty big. That affects how long it takes to transfer between computers, how long it takes to email it, how long it takes to send it to people, what type of drives you can put it on, and all that kind of stuff too. All right, lighting. This section is really, really important and affects what your scene looks like. When you're outside, exterior sun only is typically what you're going to do. If you want to do a render at like dusk or nighttime, you want to show off like exterior lights on your house. You notice here I've got a light here at the back of the house coming off the porch. I want to show what that looks like. I want to show the glow of that light and how it lights up the back of the house and that kind of stuff. I might do exterior, sun, and artificial. All right, and I can actually set what time of day it is and make it be like, 5:30 p.m. in January when the sun's setting and it's getting dark outside, and have this light turn on and have that light be a certain brightness, and I can show how that light lights up the house. You can set really nice atmospheric stuff like that and make it look cool. I'm going to show you how to do that. Exterior artificial only, black, it's midnight, no sun, and then whatever artificial lights you have outside the house will show up. This is really cool if you've actually set up like street lights and there's a road and exterior lights in your house and that kind of stuff, and they all glow and they show off how the lights actually work. Lighting in Revit's pretty cool. I'm going to show you how to do that today too. And interior, you have all the same options: sun only, sun and artificial, artificial only. Interior sun only is going to be the sun that comes through whatever windows you've created. This is really nice to show, do you have enough windows in your house? And do the windows allow enough light to come in the house to light up the house the way you want it to? That's actually really cool techniques here to show how well lit your house really is. And then your sun settings. This is how are you, what is your sun doing? I'll have to actually turn it to a sun to show you. What is your sun doing? And what time of day is it? That kind of stuff. So 1 day solar study, location, I can actually set that. I can tell it where am I. Project address. See if this will actually work. Yep, there we go, weather station. Pick the weather station that was closest to us. And then the date, we'll pick a date of 01/07 2019. So today. And then let's do right now. What is it? 10:25? 10:25 to 10:50. Roughly 30 minutes. What ground plane is, where is the ground? It's at the basement level in this house. And I click OK. That changes my lighting. You see how the lighting automatically changed? Why did it get darker at 10 a.m.? Look outside. Is it cloudy outside? It got darker because it knows it's cloudy. It connects to weather stations. It knows this stuff. Kind of cool, right? Sky, I can pick a background for it. Sky, few clouds. No clouds. Sky, cloudy. Image. This is how I can actually put my house where I'm making it. So this is professionals do this. They'll get people with really nice cameras to take pictures of a site from very specific angles, load those in here, and then do a render of the same angle of the building and put the building on the site. And then it looks photorealistic as if the building was actually on the site. You can do that. We don't have any images right now for that, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do very few clouds. Let's do a draft render. We'll see how our lighting is, and we'll go from there. Now let's click the render button. It's going to take longer right now on my machine because I'm running 3 monitors, and I'm running the recording software in the background and all that kind of stuff. So I'm taxing my machine pretty heavily right now. For you guys, a draft render, we probably would be done by now. But you'll see, draft render won't take long. No, I mean, it's not terrible, right? It gives you an idea of what you're looking at. I can't rotate around this. I can't pan around it. It is specifically the angle I selected, okay? So you can see that you get lighting, you get shadows. It knows at 10 a.m. the sun is over here, and it's casting shadows, all right? I didn't have any of the interior lights of the house turned on. I can actually go and turn on the interior. If I put lights in the house, I can turn them on individually by clicking on them. If you want interior lights on, you do. Yeah, I'm going to show you how to do that too. So I'm going to show you how to turn lights on. So now let's do a dusk render and put some lights on the outside of the house to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to bring this back. What do you do when you're done the render? You have 2 choices. If I do nothing right now and I click the X, it goes away and never, as if it never happened. You have to save it. 2 options. Save to project will save this as a 3D view now in your project, and it'll be there as one of the views you can put on a sheet. Typically, we always do that first because we definitely want to do that. We want to have it. and then export. Export exports it as an image file, a JPEG file. If you're running like 3 or 4 laptops all doing renders, one of them is going to be the master, the one that you typically always use, and the one where you're saving everything to your master project where you're going to save the project. The other ones are just doing renders to do renders. For each of those, you're going to use the export option, make it a JPEG, and then go upload that JPEG file. So you've got the image files. You can't save the project on all of them because they'll each have their own version of your house. And they'll all be trying to save over each other and be a mess. You can't do that. So on each of the other laptops, you'll do export and make an image file of it. Also, right now, I can do on display here, click back and forth so I can see the change in how the lighting was affected by the render. All right, so I don't care about the picture. I'm going to close it out. Let's do a dusk render. I'm going to rotate around to the front of the house. I think I put lights in the front of the house, didn't I? There's one light right there. So I'm going to turn on some lights inside the house, and I'm going to turn on this light at the outside of the house here. So I'm going to select the light, and I have to bring my properties panel up. I took it off because it takes up space here. So I'm going to bring up properties, and now here's my light. The light is by default on, but I need to make it bright. The default brightness for all the lights in the house are very dim. If you want to be able to see them and have them actually illuminate things, you need to increase the brightness by a lot. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Click on the light, edit type, and this is the one time where I don't worry so much about duplicating things before changing them because I want all of my lights to be very bright. I don't really care if I duplicate them and change the base things because for some reason Revit makes everything really dim. So lots of information in here, how big is it, all that kind of stuff. I don't care about any of that. I'm going to scroll to the bottom where photometrics is. This is how bright stuff is. The things I want to change are initial intensity and initial color. Color is between white and warm. Really, it's blue and orange is where you're going. The higher this number is, the more yellowish it gets. The lower it gets, more blue. Lots of presets in here for you to play with. You can kind of pick one that looks the way you want. It'll change the way the picture looks. If I pick halogen, see it looks different. If I pick xenon, it looks different. Fluorescent. So you can see it's as if the picture was lit by the light you chose. For the outside of my house, I'm going to pick a more yellowy, warmer light. It's more of a typical outdoor light I would have. So I'm going to pick a let's see, D50 reference. No, D65 reference. Let's go. It's a regular incandescent bulb, outdoor bulb. See that number is a lot lower. The lower the number is, the warmer the light is, the more orange the light is. So, initial intensity, the watts, is what gives it the brightness. The 60-watt bulb is probably what you have outside your house, but in Revit, a 60-watt bulb barely shows up at all in a render. It's very, very dim. So I'm going to make it a lot brighter. I'm going to go for 500-watt bulb. In real life, that would melt your house down. But in Revit, you need to have something bright enough to actually show up. So we're going to go 500 watts. You can play with this number, change the number, do a draft, see how it looks, change the number, do a draft, until you're happy with the way it looks. Okay? I'm going to pick 500 watts and brighten it up a little bit. Now, let's go inside my house. So I want to see the floor lamps and stuff in the house. This house does not have any ceiling lights. It has a couple of floor lamps. You can place lights in your ceiling. If you place the ceiling in your house, have you guys done that? Place the ceiling. You can do it in the ceiling view. You can put recessed lights and put lights in your ceiling if you want to. You can turn those on and off and change the brightness of those as well. I only have floor lamps in this house, so I'm going to change those. Let's go ahead and hide the roof. Hide the ceiling. And get in and change some of these floor lamps. Alright, so floor lamp here. Notice it's floor lamp hemispheric 100 watt. This one, same floor lamp. This one, same floor lamp. If I change one, I change them all because it's the same component. Does that make sense? So I'm going to come over here, pick this guy, edit type, scroll to the bottom, I'm going to change this color intensity a little bit to be a little bit less yellowy inside my house. And so I can see a different light. I want you guys to see the difference in the two types of light too as we're doing our rendering here. So I'm going to bring it to be like a warm white fluorescent. Cool white fluorescent. There we go. And I'm going to up my wattage here. I'll make these also 500 watts. I'm just going to show you here. If I select this guy, come in here. See how it changed to 500 watts? They're all the same. So I'm good. So now I'm going to show hot hidden items. And I'm going to put the roof back on. And we're going to section box the roof so we can get the ceiling back. Ceiling, unhide elements. Okay, turn off section box. Now I get my house back. All right, let's get a nice view of the front porch, and we want to see each of those rooms where I had those lights on. We'll get in here, turn in from a nice angle, like we're walking up to the porch of the house, kind of like that. Take this off. Then we'll go back into view, back into my render options, leave it at draft. Lighting. I want exterior, sun, and artificial, so I can see both. I'm going to pick for my sun, same date. I'm going to pick for time. I'm going to pick, when's the sun set? Like 5 o'clock now? Yeah, 4:35. I'm going to go from 4:45 to 5:15. Correct. Okay. And ground plane basement. Should get nice and dark. You know, I want a little darker than that. Let's go from 5 to 5:30. All right, let's see if that's good enough for our render. We'll give it a shot. And then this button here for artificial lights. This shows all artificial lights in the building. If it's checked, it's on. On, off for the light. I can turn them all on or all off all at once. Then I can turn each individual one on or off with the checkboxes. So this is where I choose which lights show up in my scene. I can also choose a dimming value. A 1 means undimmed. It's just default brightness. So I'm not going to change that. Let's do a quick draft render, see how it turns out. And this is why we do draft renders. So what do we actually see here? I see the light at the front door, right? And I see a little bit of light leaking out from that window there, right? Nothing else. It's pitch black. So let's change this here. Let's change it to be 4:30. And we'll change it. Let's leave them both at 4:30. Make another quick render and see if it changes things a little bit. Okay. So now you can see. Oh, you can barely see it. Now you can see Yep. All right, so now you can see a little bit of light leaking out from there, and that light there, and you can see that kind of dusk sunset look around the house, right? So you can play with it until you get the way you want. A more high quality render would turn out a much nicer picture than this, and it would the lighting would look better. This front light would turn out better. That's probably a little too bright, right? It's a little too shiny. And the interior lights are probably not bright enough. So I probably would turn this one down to like 350 and crank those ones up to like 1,000. Let's see what kind of effect I get out of those if I wanted to. All right, that's exterior renders, just a kind of a sample to see how that works. So let's go ahead and get out of that. Where's my render dialog at? Where's my dialog at? Here it is. Okay. So let's get out of this and let's look at some interior renders. In order to do interior renders, you have to go to the floor where you want to do the render from. Let's take a look at my main level. And you have to create a 3D view in that level. So let's say I want to do a render of that living. Let's do a render of my kitchen space here. Under my 3D view here, I have this little drop down, and I can make a camera view. I get a little option here to place the camera. I'm going to stand. Let's stand over here by the island and do a shot through the kitchen. Let's delete the random man in the kitchen. Now, I can expand this window. I'm going to close out my project browser, expand the window a little bit to give me more view so I can see more things. Random person gone. I'm going to do a shaded view so I can see what it looks like. So I have a window here and all my other stuff. That's not showing up so good, so I'm going to clip that. There. That's a good shot. Now, let's look at realistic so we can see what we're going to get. Some wood paneling. Window to let light in. If we want to see what it looks like outside, or how the light affects the interior of the house and how my light is coming into the house, I have to have a window in the room to show light in. Otherwise, I'm going to get black just like I did for the last render. Okay? Yep, just black. No light coming in. There has to be a light in the scene that I'm rendering. Even though I know there's sliding glass doors off to the left, way over here on the other side in the same room, it doesn't light the room up if it's not in the scene that I'm actually showing. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's click the render button. And we're going to start with just the exterior light. So interior sun only. And we'll see how much light I'm actually getting through that window. Let's pick a time of day. Single day. 1 day solar study. Let's pick a day. When was it sunny last? Was it yesterday? Pretty sunny? What do you think? Like 11 a.m.? All right. Now, quick draft render. See what we get. Do you see what rendering does? Even though the shading showed all this stuff, and even that was realistic, we were just in, and so it showed the colors and everything. The rendering gives you the lighting, it gives you the shadows, and it gives you the reflections. You can see the quality is not there, right? You can see the pixelation here, the pixelation here. It's very pixelated. But it gives you something that nothing else gives you. The lighting, the shadows, the reflections, in ways you can't get in any other situation. Can you see how nice this would look if I were to actually have it sit here for an hour doing this? It would turn out a really nice quality image. Okay? So, this is a good shot. I picked a good day, good sun. I have enough light through the window. This would look nice. So this shows that I can take a picture, I can take a render with no artificial light in this room. This room doesn't need it, and I got lots of sun coming through that one window. It's a nice shot. So you pick rooms. You might want to have like a bedroom with a floor lamp or like a table lamp in it, and turn those lamps on and show, okay, it's nighttime, you're going to go to bed. What does this room look like when it's night and it's lit by no sun and it has artificial light? Let's take a look at that. So it's just to show you real quick. here's what we had. Here's what we got. Do you see that reflection? I mean, really right here you see a lot. The reflection and the shadows that you don't get any other way. All right, back to our floor plan. And let's go to a bedroom. And I think these are lights. Are these lights? I think those are lights. Let's hope that they're lights. I'm not sure what I put in there. So camera, bedroom, stand at the door, looking that way. There are table lamps on the floor. Well, that's no good. Let's pick a different bedroom. This one's got a light. Let's go to that one. Okay, and go that way. Okay. Close this out. Open it up. Now, in this view, I'm a little high. My camera angle is a little high. You see that? I'm not really seeing much except for wall and floor lamp. What I can do, if I bring my properties browser back up, I can affect a few things. Down here under camera, I can change eye elevation and target elevation. Eye elevation is how high are my eyes? What am I looking at? And target elevation is where is the thing that I'm looking at? That's the angle then. Does that make sense? So I'm going to drop my eye elevation a little bit. Fusilero, how tall are you? You're 5 what? Alright, we're going to be 5'4", and we're going to look at something that's like, let's say 4 foot. It drops us down and angles us down a little bit more so we can see more stuff. You see? A little better view. Let's go ahead and look at it in realistic so you can see where we're starting. And then we're going to go to render it. And we're going to go interior artificial only. Let's make sure this lamp's bright enough. So properties of the lamp. I think that's the same lamp, so it's probably going to be the same 500 watts. Yep, so that's good. Render. Interior artificial only. I'll do a quick draft render. All right, so 500 watts, way too bright, like a little mini sun. So for this particular view, where we're standing right now, we want to adjust it to be a little less bright and a little bit more warm in this circumstance. So let's go to 350 and change the warmth to be... You have to think about the scene you're setting up. What do you want things to look like? In this case, I want it to be a little warmer, a little more homey, look more like you're, you know, at home going to bed. It's gonna be a nice time. So I'm gonna change it to be incandescent, make it look a little nicer. So render, and let's see if this looks a little nicer then. I'm gonna let this particular render finish here and see how it turns out. So as it's rendering, can you see how it smooths things out? And as time goes on, it gets smoother and nicer. That's all it does when you pick a higher quality. It takes more time to smooth things out more. It also takes more time to check the lighting and the shadows and the reflections and make all that stuff more accurate and make that stuff look better. So things that shouldn't reflect don't, things that should do, all that. So there we go. There's an interior artificial lighting only shot. This is the model without, and there's lit up. So that you guys saw that purple and you went, whoa, purple, right? But when you actually see the room lit properly, it's not that bad. You have to do this stuff with the renderings in mind. you're going to be required to do one interior, one exterior render, as well as one render of your whole site. The site renders are really cool, showing off some of your vegetation and some of your stuff that you've done. But you're going to be asked to do a minimum of 6 renders. You can even do more if you want. Take the time to make some really nice scenes that look really cool and show off the aspects of your house you want to show off. That's going to be the rest of your week. Setting up the scenes, setting up the houses, putting lights where you want them, and making things look right.